Nobody really wants to see me, so Phil has volunteered to upgrade our show significantly. And Phil, I can't thank you enough. I think this is a great idea. It may require the people to read a little bit rather than me say it, but I hope it goes out as well as we think it will. And if we could make the screen the full slant, full size, I think it might be better, Phil. That's me, not the other. Anyway, our website. As you all know, TC has been in charge of our website and has done a fantastic job and has got it to the point where it is right now. But for personal reasons, TC needs some help. And thank goodness we have found some people that have volunteered to help us develop the website and keep it going. And TC, can't thank you enough for everything that you have done to get it to this point. So with that said, some of the things that we're going to be doing, I think is going to be a reason for you to check back more than one time to our website. I think you're going to find some very interesting parts that we haven't had before, and some other changes that I think are going to be good. And I'm really looking forward to all of that taking place. It won't take place immediately. It's going to take one step at a time. But the people who have volunteered and the help that we have in place to help TC right now, I think is going to make a big difference in the website. So thank you for everybody that volunteered. And if you're new to the show and haven't been to our website yet, I hope you'll visit our website and register so that you'll get the emails about this show. And you won't miss any of them, and you'll be able to keep track with who the guests are and what we're all about. So with that said, I also want to point out that if you're interested in volunteering to do a specific job, either on the website or in the promotion, the development of our show, Phil Edholm has volunteered to be our trainer, our show trainer. And if you don't have to do a whole big amount of work, you can say, well, I'd like to do this, but only once a time, once here or once there or whatever. Phil will make sure that you understand what the job involves, make sure that you're totally trained on it. And then all you got to do is show up and do that specific job, maybe for one time a month, which would be fine. So if you're interested in helping out, which I hope you are, because we desperately need to share the wealth and keep the show going, because we are trying to do some new things. And the more new things we try, the more complicated it gets, the more people we need to get it to carry it on. Now, next thing I'd like to talk about is our build-alongs. You're aware that we have the two started right now that you see on the screen. But what I'd like to talk about is the ones for this summer. You said that you wanted new ones for this summer. So in addition to the ones that we have showing on the screen, Bill Davis is going to build a LaBelle open platform baggage car. And he's going to start doing that June the 2nd. And LaBelle is going to give a 25% discount either on the HO version, and the HO version is HO3 is the code number, and the O scale is O352 from LaBelle. And you have to put in your order that this is for the new tracks build along. That has to be in the order, or you don't get the 25% off the model from LaBelle. And Rick really was enthusiastic about doing this, and Bill is too. So I hope that you'll buy the kit. I hope that you'll build along with Bill. And like I say, his first one is going to start June the 2nd on the show. Then on July 17th, we've got a real treat for you. It's not going to cost you hardly anything at all to build along with Dave Rarick and Paul Eppy on a card model. And the card model will be posted on our website, and I'm going to post it on my Facebook page in plenty of time for you to download it, get it printed, and be ready to start building. I have seen an awful lot of Dave Rick's work, and I'm telling you, it is fantastic. You look at the models, some of the models that he has built, and you would swear that they're the quality of the best scratch build model in any material that you can imagine, and it's all card. The reason I'm so enthusiastic about card modeling is that it's so easy to get into. A number 11 X-Acto knife, some white glue, and a steel ruler, and some flat surface, and you're in business. If you make a mistake and cut wrong or do something wrong to one of the parts of it, it's no big deal. You print out another copy and keep going. It doesn't get much cheaper than that. So you don't have major money in kits or equipment or space or tools or anything, and it's great to experiment with. Now, Ed, I'm sorry, Phil, but Ed needs to have the screen to show two emails that I sent him earlier. Ed, if you could put those up. These are a card model that are going to be on our website and also on my Facebook page. They're not there right now. I'll try to get them on later tonight for sure, first thing in the morning. This is a card model. Paul designed it, sent it to me today. And you can practice it. This is not the model that's going to be built in the build-along. What's going to be built in the build-along by Dave is an engine house. And I think you're really going to like it. There are two versions of this that Paul sent me. One of them is in yellow, and the other is in red. And Ed, the other one, if you can put that one up, there's the same model, but it's in a different color. So the only coloring that you really have to do to it is the edge of each piece of paper, because you don't want any white showing at the seams. But I use a marker. I use a medium gray marker to do mine, and I use that same marker for every one of the edges that I need to darken and not have as white. It's easy to build. I can't recommend it enough, particularly for people who have a layout that they need structures for, and either they're concerned about building a model and paying a lot of money for it and not sure they can get it built. Well, here's a model that'll cost you next to nothing. And if there's no way that you can not build it, because all you got to do is keep printing it out. And it's one piece of paper. That's what you print out. Now, you print out in O scale or S scale, that's different. This is an HO. Okay, if we go back to Phil now. So I've talked about that. I have talked about those two. We are changing the date of the major build along with the four modelers because we had a problem there with timing. So that now is going to be 10/20 for that. October the 20th is when that is going to start. Also, Clark Cooney, MMR, has agreed to build the Banta model, and that'll be Clark, we're going to have to move that to start it December the 1st instead of November the 3rd. And we had to do that because we pushed back the other build. So those two changes you need to take note of. So Phil, now I'd like to talk about our new segment that starts tonight. And this new segment is called Watch Me Build. And the first guinea pig for this one is going to be John Frankfurter. And he's going to be building an S-scale, scratch-built bridge. And John, I really do appreciate you sticking your neck out and being the first one to do this. I also have coming up Nick Santos. It'll be later this year. And he's going to be building an AccuRail car. I'm looking for other people that would like to do this. This is for any skill level. It makes no difference to me. If you're interested in building something on the show and having us follow along with us, We're not talking about buying kits or anything else. We just want to watch somebody build a kit. We want to learn from your experience. Somebody earlier, before we started the show, was talking about, boy, it'd be great if we can look at models and make comments and so forth and ask questions. Well, yeah, this is the place that you could do that. And we'll all learn. Maybe the person doing the model will get some constructive comments that he learns from. For sure, we're all going to learn, because we're going to be seeing how a different kind of modeling is done by different people, that not the same people that we would normally see every time we see a model being built. So I'm really enthusiastic about this, and I really hope it takes off, but it's going to be dependent on whether you're interested in participating and whether we get modelers to want to show their work and show us how they build models. So it doesn't have to be 5 or 6 sessions. It can be a week, it can be 2 weeks, it can be whatever you want. What we're interested in doing is seeing your skills, your techniques, how you build a model. We want to watch you build. Now, I'd also like to start another new segment. I've talked to one person about it, and I really think this could be fantastic. And that is an old kit, a kit that you may never have heard of before, a kit that's not in production, probably will never be in production again, maybe something that we've never even thought about building. But if there are people out there with old kits who want to build them and show us what it's like to build like it was back in the day, so to speak, I think that'd be fantastic. And I'd love to be able to start something like that. But again, you got to contact me. And Ed, if you could put up my email so everybody has it, you got to contact me and tell me you're interested in doing it. Or like so many good ideas, it'll go in the trash can and we'll try to come up with something else. But I think we could have a lot of fun with that, seeing what it takes and how you had to build kits a long time ago. Kits not like they are today with all the bells and whistles. But I mean, you open the box and there may have been nothing more than sticks and pieces in there. The next My Build that Chris, of course, is running is May the 29th. It's open to everybody. Please bring your models and show us. We can't thank you enough for that. We're going to have special sections that night, as you know about, for both Bob Farquhar's Build Along and Gaylord and Randy's Build Along. So I hope that you'll show up for that. We don't have Paul Thompson with us this evening. Paul has got a problem where he's not going to be able to show up the last Wednesday of each month. He has a conflict that he just can't resolve. And so that's where we are. And I'd like to get somebody, if you're interested, this would be one time a month, the last Wednesday of each month. If you're interested in taking Paul's place that night and doing a one tip about whatever you think might be of value to other model railroaders, that's not a long discussion. Paul limits his to 3-5 minutes, something like that, a very short amount of time. But I'd really love it if somebody would step up and be able to take over for Paul that one time, last Wednesday of each month. Well, that's all my announcements. Now we turn to Martin Breckville, MMR for Scratch Building. Martin, welcome.
I'm completely unprepared.
Well, someone else?
A second. Give us a second.
Someone else is new.
No, give me a second. Just gotta. Where am I? Oh, there it is. So share screen. There we are. That was easy. Come on. There we go. Well, so more scratch building cars. Fancy that. More of the same. Well, only they're going to be different. I don't build too many of the same cars twice, except when I'm building 2 of them at the same time. Last week, I showed you this stack of blanks to get started with. I've used 2 of them. I got 6 more to go. I'll probably build 6 more of these before I even get done with the 6 that are left. In fact, I know I've done that at least twice since I took this picture, but we'll use 2 more tonight. And this will be a little simpler than last time. You can see my other favorite workspace here, the top of my radial saw. It's not the recommended place to be building models, but it is flat and handy when it's empty. It's a nice height, so I can sit at this. Actually, I stand here. I'm actually gotten to be more comfortable standing up while I'm modeling or building models. I'm running around between everywhere else in the house and in my office and back and forth. So standing up, I run in, fiddle with stuff a bit, clamp it up, and walk away so I don't have to watch the glue dry, because that's not very exciting. So we've got what look to be gondola sides over here. These are not 4x4s. These are 3x4s, I think. It depends on which type of stake pockets I'm going to use. But I build the sides up first, put the stakes in first, and where the stakes go gets to define where the stake pockets go. Because if you put the stake pockets in first and think you're going to line it up right, not going to happen unless you're incredibly diligent beyond most mortals. So I build these things in advance, be done with it. And just a few nut bolt washer castings on each board to hold it all together. This is the outside. So these look like one brand of Tishi nut bolt washers. This is the inside, because if it's empty, you can see the inside. And this is just a strip of styrene, in this case, a piece of metal being modeled with a different set of washers and nuts on it, just to make it more interesting. Because if it all looks the same, it gets boring very quickly.
Martin, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
How do you get your nut bolt castings so in such a straight line and equally spaced?
I wish I knew. I don't think they're that straight. Uh, honestly, it's all glued up. I eyeball it. It's a very bright light up against my variable speed drill press. So I'm not drilling them by hand. So this is as quick as I can. Bang, 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 bang. I don't do a lot of thinking. Maybe that's the key. Don't think about it. Just nail the holes and they're all the way through. So you don't have to worry about it.
Got it. Thank you. Oh,
no problem. And you can see this car has a totally different set. These are Grant Line parts. These are brand new ones over here. These are some ancient ones out of my stock. The new ones are this kind of cream colored, or I don't know what color that is. And you got this gray. And the really old ones, which I still have in my stock, are the black ones. So I can tell how old they are. Clamp it all together. I really like these little clamps. I think I got those at Home Depot years ago. It's particularly nice when you clamp something like this together. It actually holds the car up nice and straight for you in place, so you can actually see what you're building. And you can get the two ends aligned pretty neatly. Of course, the scribe siding here, these are individual boards actually in this case. You've got a line right there. So getting it not lined up is pretty hard. You should not have any difficulty getting it all lined up. It's already made there for you. The basic underbody, some resin bolsters, drilled and tapped for 440. Various different sizes of queen posts on the needle beams. One piece of surgical silk passed through the car 4 times under tension. Each time through, thread on a Tishi turnbuckle. They're down tight on the needle beams now, but they'll get lifted up later. These are 4x4s because these are the All Nation stake pockets. They're a little larger than Grant Line. Grant Line won't hold a 4x4, but strangely enough, it's perfect with a 3x4. I know it's an odd size, but you can get 3x4s from Kapler and Mount Albert. You put all the little bits and fiddly bits and bobs in, and now it looks like everything belongs here. I'm not sure where I got these white metal castings, but I rather like them. I'm going to be very sad when I run out of them. I don't have anything else like them. I'd really been daring, I would have made a mold and made my own, but you know, you're not supposed to be doing those sorts of things with other people's stuff. A little brass chain over here connecting to your wire into the brake stirrup. You can see I've got a brake shaft already in there. And for odd reasons, I've only got stirrup steps on one side. I know I put them on both sides. We'll see them on both sides. I must have been in between. Yep, there we go. Top side view. Okay, so we've got stirrup steps. Those are from Scale City Designs. They're white metal castings. They're rather nice. And you'd think that they wouldn't be very tight on the sides, but this is where that combination of a little bit of goo it together, take the goo apart, take the joint apart, take the casting off, add a little CA to the white metal, put it back on place. You'll bend the casting before you get it off of there now. Okay, so I've added, there's an extra hole in all these. So there's another nut, there's a nut bolt and washer or a rivet from Grant Line in those holes. A nice brake wheel. I'm not quite sure whose that is. It's not Precision Scale. Forgotten who made those. But they ratchet and pawl. You got to have a ratchet and pawl casting. Those are really just add a little bit of detail there and a little bit of a platform that's a piece of styrene angle that's just glued in place. And then there's, I can tell you, there's a nut bolt and washer casting. There's at least two of them underneath there. These bridge pieces across here are actually structural. This nut bolt and washer casting is just the top of the nut bolt and washers. The sprue is not down there. What is in there, I actually drilled through this into this stake and side, and there's a steel pin, literally a pin. Just cut the head off a pin and shove it down in there with some CA. So that actually is locked together, and this just covers up the steel pin at top. So, and this is still all removable. This is not, these sides are, I never glued the sides in. So if I really wanted to take it off and have a flat car again, yeah, I could do it. Why I want another boring flat car, I have no idea. These are much more interesting than flat cars. So the ends are just made up of individual boards, same as the sides. More bracing, more in nut bolt washer castings. Fairly straightforward, actually. This is a fairly easy build. You take it outside and throw paint on it. Did that. I think we had a really nice day in the 70s in February. So it was a quick run outside with every single car and possible thing I could paint with inside a cardboard box on a pair of trestles out in the driveway. My neighbors must think I'm absolutely bonkers. In fact, I think when I'm out there with a chainsaw, some of them actually know I'm bonkers because I'm wearing a hockey mask at the same time. So it's kind of frightening. But, you know, nice paint job. Go back and touch things up. Add some arch bar trucks. Put the truss rods up on the queen post. Trim off the excess off the ends. And, okay, I added an air hose at each end. Air hoses, I add those to that 33 thousandths or 31.5 thousandths brass wire that's in there. It depends where I got it from as to the size. That is a brass precision scale casting. Now, joining in a piece of end-to-end brass doesn't work very well. It's not very strong. What I actually do is there's a piece of brass tubing. It's 3/64 brass tubing OD. I've forgotten what the ID is, but it's about 33 thousandths. So I actually make a union joint, a union coupling, and solder a little piece of tubing onto the end of the brass casting, and then solder or shove it on top of the piece of airline brass wire, usually with some goo or CA, or if I'm really determined, I'll actually solder it all together. But once it's on there, it doesn't go anywhere. So that's one of the cars. And here's its mate. So this is a matched pair. Because I got into building matched pairs for a while. I'm still building a matched pair on my bench right now, but it's going to be a month before you ever see those two. Much, far more complicated and probably more than I should have bitten off. It's proving to be a bit of a challenge.
Hey,
So-
Martin, how do you know that how can you tell the difference between these twins?
They actually are slightly different. And it's also the order of the slides I put them in and the label of the picture, but they are slightly different. you know, couple of 30 seconds on the length of the sides, because I didn't cut these all, I didn't cut all these sideboards simultaneously. I cut them individually, or sometimes I do stack them up and just run them through the bandsaw. You know, if I'm in a hurry, I'm impatient, don't want to wait. I just stack up. This is, gosh, looks like about, it's either 3x16 or 3x14, something in that range in O scale, or it's 4x stock, which would be a little too heavy. But I just stack those up, run them through the bandsaw. I got a 12-inch bandsaw with a half-inch blade on it. It's amazing how fast you can go through a stack of basswood with a bandsaw. And your fingers if you're not careful. So, you know, I advise caution when doing such foolishness. And that's the end of that build. I stopped there. So that's the end of that. And anybody got a host of questions or not, throw them at me.
Martin, I do have a question about the insills where you're running the silk through them.
Yeah.
In a future presentation, could you show us the insills? I think a picture would help me understand how you're wrapping that, because the way I'm envisioning it, you would still see the silk on the outside of the insill. So I'm missing something.
Oh, okay. I cut that off. So it's all that you see. I trim it off at the nut bolt and washer casting that's actually holding it in place. So I'm drilling a hole in the end with a number, well, it depends on the size of the nut bolt washer casting, but say that the ones I'm using right now from Grantline, it's a number 56 drill. So that plus the number 0 silk is pretty snug. So
Okay.
the silk's in there already. Well, one or two pieces, it's passed through one or two holes. And then I hold it taut, stick a nut bolt and washer casting in the hole, sprue and all, with a puddle of CA on the plastic casting. Just shove it in there. Sometimes it's not as easy as it sounds because you really want it to be tight. So it's friction. It's friction plus CA.
Okay.
And after it's gone, and as you go through each end, keeping it tight, another nut bolt washer, CA, stick it in, another one. So you do all 8.
Okay.
And so there's some silk left on the outside. I come back a day later or an hour later, depending on how much of a hurry I'm in. Number 10 scalpel blade, right up tight close to the nut bolt washer casting. Cut the silk off. Just snip it.
Okay.
I've never had one of these fail. So the secret really is in getting the hole size drilled, you know, choosing the proper hole size. If you're too big, it's going to slip. Too small, you're not going to get your nut bolt and washer casting in. So you get out your calipers, measure the sprue bolt component of the casting, and get a drill size 1 or 2 up from that size. I'd really like to use a number 55, but I don't have a number 55 drill. I've apparently either broke it or lost it. So I'm actually using one that's a little larger than normal right now, but it's holding perfectly fine. So, you know, I've been toying with the idea of just next time I do a truss rod job, just taking a picture of each pass through. So
That'd be helpful.
I'll do that. Wow. I guess I could do that next week. I've got the project I'm working on right now. It's turned into a bit of a horror. But one of the 2 cars, it's just about ready to start the underbody. I've done 90% of the superstructure, but I was going to do its mate next. It's catching up slowly in the background, but I could do both at the same time. I'm pretty good at multitasking. So,
Martin, it's Greg. I have a question for you. To make it easier to tell your cars apart, I assume you number them and possibly put road names or something on them. How do you do that? What do you use to do that?
sometimes I don't. Sometimes they're just captive maintenance away cars. I don't worry about it then. I generally letter my cars using dry transfers. I don't use too many decals on this era of car. Usually I had I don't know how many sheets, 100 sheets or 100, no, maybe 50 sheets made up for Cumberland Valley Railroad by Clover House. So I just go into my cigar box of dry transfers and do dry transfers. Then you don't have to worry about gloss coating or anything. So that, your paint being, and the surface being a little rough and being a natural paint surface, they stick rather nicely. So yeah, doing dry transfers I've gotten to really like dry transfers for particularly for some of the more interesting cars for that Clover House has sets for. In fact, every now and then I buy a set of dry transfers or 3 from Clover House before I even start the car, because I just like the dry transfers. I think that's cool. I have to have a car with that on it. And I'm never going to see one anywhere else. And he has such a great catalog of stuff in all different scales. So, I actually recommend people go to his site, download the catalog and wind your way through it and have a good look. Because there's all kinds of fun stuff in there that would really be kind of cool. That's earlier era cars, I freely admit it. But every now and then you just need to have a really colorful, different, unique car on your layout just for fun. And there's
Yeah.
they're a little tricky, they're a little tricky doing but when they get to the multicolor ones, because you have to align them all, put down a layer, seal it, put down another layer, seal it. And you don't use dull coat for that, because that actually is not entirely, those dry transfers aren't entirely compatible with dull coat. I'm actually using Rust-Oleum matte clear. Anything else? I guess
Have you ever considered using outside hung brake shoes on your Arch Bar trucks?
Outside ones. No, never done outside ones. I have tried to put some inside ones on, but the outside ones with an end beam on the outside, it could be interesting to really backdate them even further. It's a nice idea. I've got a few bags of castings of those too. So yeah, it's something I should look around and play with a little bit on some of the earlier cars.
Martin, in lieu of dull coat, what do you use to seal your dry transfers?
Rust-Oleum matte clear.
Ah, okay, thank you.
Fair warning, it's really stinky.
That's what God made spray booths.
Yeah, well, that one, if I even spray in the basement, one short spray, I hear screams of anguish upstairs.
Ooh.
So, and she can tell, you're using that stuff again, aren't you? Yeah, I get caught. So that one,
I hear you.
yeah. So if I'm painting with flow quill, she knows it, but that's okay. That's not too bad. But yeah, other spray rattle cans, not too bad. That particular one, I don't know what the formulation is in it, but it's particularly noxious.
Thank you.
Hey, Martin, thank you so much. I appreciate it so much tonight. Thank you.
No problem. I'll have to put together some slides on underbody now. I have to remember to do that.
Fantastic.
Yep.
Now I'd like to turn to Clark Cooming, MMR, who's going to talk about tools. This is his part 2 of his presentation on tools. So Clark, welcome.
I'm here. I just got kind of a crazy message. Co-host asked you to start your video. I don't have video. So let's go to share screen. And so this is Tools with Clark. We did the first version a little while ago, and this is sort of page number 2. So let's go. For those who don't know me, I'm MMR 225, as Jim said. I have been the past NMRA vice president. I've done I developed a program called Mine with the Masters, which some of you may have taken part in. And I've been in NFR, which is a region, past president a couple of times, president of NMRA Canada, judged, and done a lot of things. I've even hosted Train Masters TV from Model Railroad Hobbyists, and done Model Railroad podcasting regular. And I live in Elliott Lake now, Ontario. I was a paramedic for almost 35 years on the front line in the Toronto area. Where's Elliott Lake? Yeah, well, it's way up here. It's a 6-hour drive from Toronto to Elliott Lake, or Chicago, it's 11 hours. If you're going to Detroit, Michigan, it's an 8-hour drive. And if you're just going over to Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan, which is right here, it's a 2.5-hour drive. So let's go. As I said before, when it comes to model tools, buy well, buy once. And if you buy half decent tools, you won't have to, keep buying them. And that doesn't mean you have to spend a lot of money. And as I said before, if you're a plumber, you have plumber's tools. If you're a woodworker, you have woodworking tools. So if you're a modeler, you have model tools. Let me see. I got the list of above. Okay. If you're using DCC, you should get one of these DCC ramp meters. It is a fantastic tool. You can tell if you got a DC signal, you can tell your voltage. And if you hook it up, you can even see how much amperage you're drawing. When you're using DCC, as probably most of you know, people say, well, how many amps do I need for my layout? And the size of the layout really doesn't matter. It's how much amps you're using that dictates if you need a booster or not. All right, so another great thing is a little DC cable tester. You can buy these off Amazon for almost nothing, so you can make your own cables. So what's new? Ooh, we got some stuff. First of all, everybody should have one of these little electrical continuity testers. I use these all the time. There's just a little battery in that red handle, and there's a little flashlight bulb. And if you connected the black probe to the tip of the red probe, the light would go on. So it just makes a complete circle. Now you say, well, what can I do in model railroading? Well, if you touch, and you make sure your power is off, if you touch it to one rail and to the other rail, it should not light because they should be separated. So if it does light, you have a short somewhere. It also is great for testing leads and all kinds of things on the model railroad. So very handy little tool, and you don't have to spend a lot of money. You can buy them at hardware stores even. A paper cutter. Now this, I thought, why would I need a paper cutter? Oh, they're handy as heck. Remember when we were doing the paper signs? This is really handy for cutting paper signs. It's also great for cutting 5-thou styrene or 10-thou styrene when you're doing windows for buildings. You can just slide it in here, zip that cutter along, and cut out your styrene windows. It's a great little tool for very little money. An angle cutter. Now, these are actually upholstery cutters. They use this in the upholstery business. And you can buy them through Micromart. You'll see them at shows if one of the tool guys are there, the tool man or the tool lady or whatever the heck the tool person is. And they're not that cheap, but they're really handy. They make cuts really quickly, especially if you want to make like a 45 if you're making a window frame or something and you're using a very light stock. But these will cut fairly heavy stock, and I use them for quite a few things. Measuring, of course, we got to have rulers. People say, oh, I don't need a ruler. I just look at it. I don't understand how you do that, but you can do it. So I like the clear ruler when I'm looking through things. They're not good for cutting, obviously. They're plastic and you can nick them. And they come in all kinds of scales. And the neat thing is that they're pretty cheap. You can get a little metal ruler, such as the small one, and that's N scale specific. So that's why it's so small. Architectural rule. That is a fantastic ruler. You can buy them at Michael's and so forth. And I use that all the time. Now, if you're into S scale, man, that's your ruler because it's got 3/16 right on it, and you can go and measure all the stuff you want. And of course, you got the general rule, which has a multiple of scales on it. Now, I always say to people, because I've had lots of people complain, oh, Jesus, I cut it a foot long. You look where 0 is. The 0 is actually a foot from the end. It's not actually at the end. So make sure when you're using your ruler, you'll check to see where the 0 is. Simple compass set will speed up repeated measurements. I use this all the time. And I will measure out what I need to measure once, and then my calipers or compasses are set, and I can just keep measuring that same piece constantly. One of the biggest things in modeling and sort of speed is I got a layout to build, and I can't be, measuring every single piece every single time. Use this, you can repeat that measurement constantly. Handy clamps, as Martin mentioned in his little car building thing, clamps are just so fantastic now. These little green ones are handy. These red ones, and then a metal one, you can see it's all kinds of paint and it's got a curve to it. And you can buy again these at the Tool Man or at the train shows for pretty inexpensive. The plastic ones are really nice when you're using, let's say, acid to etch Campbell shingles and stuff, or the metal. And you don't have to worry about your metal ones going into the acid. You can use the plastic ones. As Martin mentioned earlier, clamps are just sort of what everybody needs. I love these little quick grips. You can buy them all over the place. They can, when they're on sale, they're pretty cheap. They're inexpensive now. Somebody said, oh, bar clamps are expensive. Yeah, they are, especially for what you get. But boy, they're handy and sometimes are much easier to use than, let's say, the quick grip. Miniature clothes pegs. Go to the dollar store. Buy these little miniature clothes pegs. These are like maybe a 1/2 inch actually. And I use the clothes pegs for everything. I can, mock up a model. I can do all kinds of stuff, and they're relative. I think you get 100 of these little miniature ones for, 59 cents or $1, so to speak. C-clamps, if you have some small ones, they're handy too. Now, I don't know if any of you have seen these. It's called the Right Way magnetic clamp. They come in a set of 2. And they're all magnetic pieces. You can see in the photo here as they're held in their holder that they've got magnetic pieces. And here's one that's pulled apart. You can see the magnets here. And the nice thing about these, they have the cutout here and the cutout here, so that when they do go into a corner of a building, you can run your styrene glue or whatever you're using, and it won't touch the model or the magnet. So you can see them in place. They hold it nice and tight, and they're really handy to use. So another neat tool that you can get in your toolbox. They're not cheap. I think for a pair, they're like about $30, but very handy. Sanding sticks, of course, everybody probably has or familiar with these. You just sort of push down on it. They're spring loaded, and you can move the belt around. And when you're finished, you can have multiple different little belts. You can see here that these are 80 grit. There's 100 grit. So you can get the different grits for the different work. And these are fantastic for doing windows and stuff. Now, a little tip: go back to those little clothes pegs and break one apart. And when you've kind of worn the majority of the sanding belt and you go to replace it, there'll always usually be 2 or 3 spots where it's not even touched. So cut that little piece, use some contact cement, glue it onto the end of those paper or wooden pegs, and then you can use that as a mini filing piece for little pieces, and it works great. plastic, if you're cutting heavy styrene, anything like over 60 thou, you don't really want to use a knife. You want to get yourself a plastic knife. And what it is this big hook. They use this for cutting the plastic inserts for ceiling lights and so forth. And you can buy them at hardware stores, Home Depot and stuff, and they're only a couple bucks. So they're really handy for heavier styrene. So you're not trying to pushing through it with your X-Acto knife. And again, you just have to score it and break it to separate the plastic pieces. A hole punch, they're a great thing to have, you know, for starting little holes and materials, or punching out a start for a window, or you can even use this for the four corners of a window if it's large enough. And then you can just take your knife and go to the four corners. Also, if you get a big one, a bigger hole series in these, you can use them for making lily pads. What you want to do is take a piece of 10 thou styrene, paint them green with a little bit of yellow, and then just sit there and punch out your lily pads, and you can make all kinds of lily pads and put them in your water scene. Material holders, these things you just can't have enough of because you usually run out of hands. And they're great for doing little electronics projects where you hold that piece and, you know, you got the solder in one hand and your iron in the other, or gluing up little pieces. So these are really good. Make sure they have a nice heavy base. Small scissors. Oh, very invaluable for your bench. And I have a variety of them. Now the one that is here on the end is actually got curved ones. And you know what they're great for is when you're doing, when you're cutting off shingles off a roof. Because of the curve, you can only cut off so much of the shingle and keep moving up, and you won't cut into the roof material. So that's a little trick. Somebody mentioned this before. I forget. I use these window scrapers all the time. They come in different styles. Here's one. They just have a straight razor blade in them. And for quick cuts, especially straight cuts, you just have to punch that down, whoop, you're cut, and you keep on going. They're also handy, of course, to clean up your piece of glass on your workbench. Etch brass. If you're a brass guy, you want to get some proper tools. These little Xuron pliers are meant for bending brass. And I don't know if you can see it in this picture, but they have a very sharp angle here. And then the mating surface is obviously the opposite. It's hollowed out, so it mates. And you can just squeeze them together and it'll bend your small pieces of brass into 90 degrees. The other thing I have, because I have done some brass stuff, is I bought one of these little, basically a bending press. It's miniature, and you can clamp your material in here, and then you use these pieces. They slide underneath the brass, and you bend it up. I've used it 2 or 3 times on some brass. Say that 5 times fast. Some brass pieces. Very straight bends. You don't get an angle on it. It's worth the money. I got this at a show, but I believe you can find them at Micromart or some other places. But if you go to a show, a lot of the tool guys will have these. Of course,
Hey, Mark, quick question.
Yes. Go ahead.
On YouTube, they want to know, do you have a list of these tools somewhere?
No. I will compile one and maybe get it on the website.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. And to our YouTube listeners, we'll try and help you out. This top one is actually for drilling gas into gas lines. A friend of mine worked for the gas company. They had put it in these little vents sometimes, and they use this as a starter. So these are handy. This is a double-ended one. And of course, some of you people have seen one of these. You just push down on it and it spirals down and makes the drill. A little tip is to always make sure you put the minimum piece out for the job that you're doing. You don't want it, the full length, because it's just going to bend and break. So just put out enough that it will go through and or do the job that you're asking it to. The other thing is get yourself a couple pieces of beeswax. You can find this in all kinds of places, especially places that carry airbrushes. They usually have beeswax for sealing the threading on airbrushes. Get yourself some beeswax, take the drill it into the beeswax. And what that does, as the drill goes into the material, it lets the excess come out of the spirals easier, and it tends not to bind up your little bit as you drill and save on breakage. Now, the other thing is a nibbler. Use this in electronics for cutting boards and other items. I have used this lots for doing all kinds of stuff. It is amazing how much you'll use this little tool. So let's say we want to put a door or window in some styrene. Basically, here's your sheet of styrene. Then we make a small hole so that we can put up the head of the nibbler in through the hole. And then you can see in the first picture, the head of the nibbler is up, and all you have to do is squeeze it. Now, it doesn't take a very big bite of material, which is good, because you have a lot of control. As you can see in the other photo, it only takes like that quarter, it's not even a quarter inch, I would say, bite here. And it's maybe a little less than an eighth of an in depth. So you just go around, squeeze that, make your window for your door, or your, your window or your door, and Bob's your uncle, you're done. And I also use this in wood too. For scenery, if you've ever put in field grass, you can buy this little tool. You can make one as well. It's sort of got a fork on it, and you'll notice that it's kind of oval shaped because it holds the material, and it's great for planting grass. So you take your field grass, you slide it into that gap, and then fold it up around the tool itself. Hold it with your fingers, and then you just drive it down. You can see here, this is that little building that we had. You just drive it down. Now this is styrofoam, but if you've got plaster, you would make a little drill hole, and then you can continue to use the same method, and put a little glue in the hole as you do it. And then your field grass is planted. I take my scissors that we talked about before, cut it, make a little cut, and now you have a nice little field grass sticking up in front of something. You're never too old for Lego. Woohoo! This is a giant piece of Lego. That's actually the container for Lego. And I thought I had some Lego around, but I couldn't find it. So I ordered a little starter set, and it comes in this, and I use it for building molds, and I use it for all kinds of things. You can adjust the size really easy, and make all kinds of different shapes. And because of the different Lego pieces now with the slopes and everything, you can put angles on it and do all kinds of stuff. So here we made a mold, we put it on glass, and I poured the plaster in. Now this isn't the same mold, obviously. This one's a little bigger, and I have a plaster loading dock. These palette knives are great for so many applications. I use them a lot, and get yourself a good set. The plastic ones are okay, but they tend to break. The metal ones are much better, and they're very flexible. You can use this for lifting up track and all kinds of things. But I use this a lot in scenery and trying to blend a one rock mold to the other rock mold. It works really well. Of course, as somebody we mentioned before, angle blocks and scrap cutoffs. If you can find a machine shop close to your area, just drive over, go around 4:30 or so, and the guy's about ready to close, and say, hey, have you got any scrap pieces? And usually they go, yeah, sure, how many you want? And they'll give you some aluminum pieces. Now the two big angle blocks, those are 2x2s from Micromart. And I have probably about 6 of those. I also have some 1-inch ones of those as well. Very handy to use. Earth magnets. I use this a lot. I will put a magnet on each side of 2 pieces of styrene or something that I want to, that I've glued together to hold it in place. I also use this for making sure that I will put it on one side of the material and it will stick to those angle blocks to hold a piece in play. Get yourself one of these universal trucks rather than a standard collet for a Dremel tool. They make life so much easier. You can just screw this on. When you go to put a tool in, all you have to do is turn it down. It's like a drill chuck only on your drill, and it's got a 3-point piece on it, and it'll just tighten down onto whatever tool. Makes a heck of a lot easier than trying to get out, find the wrench, undo the collet. Oh, you don't have the right insert in it. What a nonsense. Just buy one of these. Stretchable line. These are really great for hydro lines and other applications. This stuff came from Berkshire Junction. It's actually the same, it's Lycra, and they use it in men's underwear. Now, it's very hard to see in the first picture. I've got it strung across the 2-inch blocks. And in the middle picture, I'm pushing my finger on it. It goes right down to the bottom. And when I release it, it pops right back up. And that would be great, you know, if you got hydro lines, and especially if it's in front of a piece of track and you've got operators always trying to reach in, you don't have to worry about the breakage. Okay, here we go. This is one of the greatest tools of all time, but it's hard to find them and you gotta make them. This is my own chopper saw. It's made out of parts from photocopiers. A fellow in our area builds them. He's got a long bed and a short bed, and they are fantastic. And I bought one off of John a long time ago, and you can see some of the dust and the sawdust is still on this one. And it's got a moving bed in it, so you can do any angle you want. You just loosen that knob, move it around, and it's belt driven, and it's really cool. And all you have to do is you got there in the first picture, you got your lever, you just put your finger on it. It's really well balanced. It comes down, chops your wood, and you let it go and take your wood out. And it runs when it's switch activated. So when it's in the upright position, it's not doing anything. And as soon as you start to come down, it comes on. And that's it for tonight. Stay tuned for part 3 sometime in the future.
Hey, Clark, fantastic. I really do appreciate you doing this. I know it's a lot of work for you, but thank you so very much. And I apologize again for missing you one night. It's my total fault, but I really appreciate you doing this.
So no problem. As I said, I have number 3 underway with some other tools and some other neat things. So we'll go from there.
Absolutely. I will be in touch, as always.
All right.
By the way, on your resume,
Yeah.
Why aren't you listening to my show?
I
Because you're
could-
becoming a regular.
I could do that.
Okay. Also, don't you want your nickname on there? I didn't see Debbie Downer anywhere.
Oh, well, that wouldn't be my nickname.
Thanks, Clark.
But if you call me the Big Kahuna, I know where you're coming from.
I understand. All right. Before Charles, I can't thank you enough for being here tonight. And this is going a little bit longer than I anticipated before I can introduce you, but please bear with me one more minute here. I want to introduce now John Frankfurter. John called me up and said, I built this bridge and I'd like to do the Watch Me Build section that you talked about starting. So John is the guinea pig. This is the first time we've done this, and this is his first session tonight. And John, I can't thank you enough for wanting to do it. And I hope everybody enjoys what you're doing. It's an S-scale bridge that John scratch built. And this is exactly the kind of product, the kind of modeling that I was hoping that we could have on this section, because we're not asking you to buy kits, build along with us, none of that at all. This is John showing us his techniques and his modeling. And I hope you enjoy it. And John, thanks again for doing it.
John's not here tonight.
I got you. Well, okay, moving right along.
All right. Now, let's see where. Okay. So since well, let me introduce myself. I've written the scratch building for the beginner for those out there who are not MMRs or have been sitting in the background saying, ooh, look at those models. I wish I could build that. Well, in my series, I'm going to try to work through how I went about building my first bridge. I'm sure I'm going to see a lot of, or there's probably going to be a lot of people says, well, I would have never built it that way, but you know what? This is how I build it. It's my first bridge, so let's take a look. So my name is John Frankforther. That's pronounced Frankforther. I'm a retired electromechanical service tech, 40 years in the industry working for RCA and Pitney Bowes. Lots of hands-on scratch building when you work on electronic cables, test fixtures, machine repair. And if you get something that breaks down, 9 times out of 10, you got to make parts to make it work. Lifetime American Flyer owner. I've upgraded some of my Flyer engines to the new DC CAN motors so I can run DC on my layout. My whole layout is now DCC. I started scratch building on my layout because there's not a lot out there in S gauge that I want. This bridge that I'm going to show you how I built. It's going to be a very basic bridge. It kind of looks like it should. It may have things that are missing, but this is my first attempt, so I'm going to go with that. I also work with Arduino-based modules. I know there was talk that there may be some interest in that as far as some of my future builds, so we will talk about that later. So what is scratch building? Well, it's the process of building scale model from scratch. I mean, you take wood, cardboard, paper, plastic, or whatever, and you put it together and make a model. So the way I'm doing this is as if you guys are in the red asking the questions, and these are my replies. So this is my first attempt at this, so I hope it works okay. So where do I get these pieces, parts to make the model? Well, you can either make them, get them at a hobby craft store, or get them online. But I don't have a machine to make the parts or nowhere to buy them. You just need a few simple hand tools and some patience to make your own parts, or you can find them at a local hobby craft store or online hobby stores. And Phil came up with a great selection of tools that you may need once you get into modeling, but these are some of the basic tools I have when I started working on my model. The X-Acto knife with extra blades, pencil, ruler, scissors, tape to hold the project together while it's gluing, tweezers, magnifying glass, plastic T-square for making right triangles, and possibly a compass for making circles. Some of the tools I bought at Micromart. It's a great place for to find small hand modeling tools. Some of the hobby stores, if you have any near you, also carry a line of tools. So as was mentioned in the tools before, when you're looking for tools, you want to try to find a ruler that is has the scale that you're working on. This will be make measuring your tools easier. On the lower edge of this particular ruler, it's marked out in 3/16 scale, which is what I model in. If you notice, the divisions to the left of the 0 are fractions of foot. And when you're using these kind of rulers, you got to make sure that you're using the correct selection on the ruler to get the right measurements. So if you look at the ruler, the large numbers on the 3/16 edge going left to right are your scale feet for the 3/16 scale. The smaller numbers going from 124 to the right are for a different scale that are marked on the other end of the ruler. For an example, if you need a 4-foot beam long, place the end of your material at the 0 mark and at the other end at 4, and that'll give you your 4-foot scale beam. So how do I fasten these parts together? Well, most people use some sort of a glue. So what kind of glue do I need? Well, it depends on the material you're using. It could be wood glue, CA plastic glue, hot glue, even epoxy. You can check your local hobby store, check a local train group, ask here on New Track Show, check out model building magazines, or use Google to search for different types of glues. Okay, so I have all the stuff you mentioned. Now what? First, you need to know what scale you're going to build in. Scale, what do you mean? Well, scale is the size of the project you're trying to represent. Popular scales are G, O or Lionel, S or American Flyer, HO, N, C, and a host of other various variations. If you know what scale you're modeling in, you can check the web to see what scale factor is. What scale factor? What's that? When models are made, they are scaled down to a size that fits the model needed. For instance, I model an S scale, which means 3/16 of an inch equals 1 foot. So if you had a beam that needs to be 25 feet long, you would multiply 25 by 1.875 to get 4.6875 inches, or 4 11/16 to get the scale inches you need to make a 25-foot beam. Whoa, where did you get that 0.1875 in the calculation? Well, since my scale factor is 3/16 of an inch, you divide 3 by 16 to get the 1.875. You use this number when calculating your measurements for your parts. Okay, I get it. I have the tools. I know what scale I'm in. I know what scale factor, and I know how to make the parts. Now what? Well, you need an idea or a plan to start with. Maybe something you saw in a magazine. Sometimes you can find a full-scale diagram of what you want to build that has the measurements on them. Other times, you have to estimate the dimensions, what fits your needs. You may even need to use measurements that you can find of a similar project to estimate the basic dimensions you need. Can you give me an example? Okay, let's look at an example of a standard entry door. Its measurement is 80 inches high by 36 inches wide. I'll be using my 3/16 scale calculation of 0.1875 to find the new scale measurements. Since the door measurements are in inches and our scale calculations are in feet, you need to convert the inches to feet. Using the 80 inches, we divide by 12 and we get 6.66 feet. Now we can convert that to our scale feet by multiplying 6.66 times 0.1875, and we get 1.25 inches, or 1 1/4 inches for our door height. We do the same thing for the width. 36 divided by 12 equals 3. 3 times 0.1875 equals 5.625, or 9/16 for the door width. So our scale door measurement, it would need to be 1 1/4 inch high by 9/16 wide. Okay, I think I got it so far. What if I don't have actual objects to measure from? Good question. In our next session, we'll look at how I constructed a bridge that spans across 2 tables on my layout from pictures I found on the internet. That's all I have today. If you have any questions, I'll try to answer the best I can.
John, I appreciate it. I think that was great, and I'm looking forward to your next presentation, which will be 1 week from today. John will be back for number 2, so stay tuned. As I say, I'm looking for more modelers to do this kind of thing, so if you're interested, please let me know. Now, I'd like to turn to Charles Roush, MMR. Charles I've really been looking forward to your presentation. He's going to talk to us about JMRI Decoder Pro. I've never used JMRI. I don't even know what it is. I've been trying to bring people on the show that are knowledgeable in this kind of stuff because I think it's so important for the future of model railroading. And I'm so ignorant about all of it. So Charles, welcome, and thank you so much for being here.
Okay, I think I'm on.
Okay.
Okay, let me see here. Oh, do you see that?
I see that.
Good. All right. So what is the Decoder Pro? What is JMRI? Let me just go to the next page. And I have to hit new share. Oh boy. Okay. JMRI stands for Java Model Railroad Interface. I spoke to this. I spoke about JMRI the last time I did a clinic here, and we were talking about operations. But today I'm going to talk about what Decoder Pro is. Decoder Pro really stands for Decoder Programmer. It's a methodology that they developed with this computer interface that allows you to program your decoders. And by I mean program, I'm not saying that you're telling the decoder how to do its thing. What you're doing in Decoder Pro is changing what they call configuration variables.
Harley, can you go to the full screen?
I can't.
Okay.
The reason I can't is because I want to keep the ability to run live on Decoder Pro, and I have to keep. If I go to full screen,
No problem. Yeah,
there's no way for me to escape it. So I'm going to go to Decoder Pro Live so that we can actually read decoders, read a decoder, and make changes to it, and see what goes on with that. So I'd like to keep it in this mode if that's possible. All right. So what it is that JMRI is a group of volunteers who've come up with a way to standardize the methodology of changing computer configuration variables inside decoders. Now, each decoder, the Digitrax decoders, the ESU decoders, the Soundtrax, Tsunamis, there are hundreds of decoder manufacturers, especially in Europe, that in each of these decoders has different options and different functions that they perform. This Decoder Pro is trying to be able to handle every kind of decoder, and it's going to give you screens that'll allow you to choose your decoder and then go and start making adjustments to that decoder for various functions. What I mean by various functions, I'm talking about when the lights come on, what the color the lights are, which lights go on, how the motor actually functions, what speed it runs at, what to do with reverse and backwards. And all those kinds of functions are available for the various decoders by all the manufacturers, and it's all done through Decoder Pro. Now, let me see, I have to do new share. Every time I do this, I have to do a new share, right?
No, you do not. You're fine right
Actually,
now.
the better way to do it is share your desktop, not the application. And that way it'll be an easy transition. Why don't you stop sharing?
Here.
Okay, you've stopped sharing. So now
Okay.
click on share again. The bottom of your
Yep.
screen, click on share. Now share the upper left screen that's your desktop, the one where you see,
Oh, yeah, okay. I got
click
it.
on share. Cool, thanks.
Okay, good. Now I can go. Now, in order to take these JMRI functions, JMRI is loaded into either one of three different kinds of computers. You can have it loaded into a standard PC, Windows kind of machine, or you can have an Apple, or else you can have a Linux. Now,
Hey,
with
Charles,
those,
you haven't hit the actual share button. We're still seeing you.
you don't want to see me. Okay, now we have to share this one. Do you see that now?
Yes.
Okay, so the JMRI runs on your computer. However, you've got to now get that computer to go to a programming track or the layout to do the various functions. And there are tools and there are devices that are available. Those devices are made by Digitrax, and it's called a PR3, a PR3 Extra, or a PR4, or the new DCS 210, or there's another 200 DCS that has this interface already built. NCE provides a USB interface. There's another company called Local Buffer that has a USB interface. Sprague 3 does it. And that's, but I want to talk about what I have here and what runs for me. I use a regular old-fashioned Digitrax PR3. So now let me go to the next. Now let's see. This should go now to the next. So you see the next screen, the software link. Okay. The trick is to download the Windows or to Apple computers, the JMRI. Now, the most difficult part of getting this download done is getting the proper USB driver to work with the different interface device that you have. Now, that's a tough call. And when you buy the device, you will get all sorts of software with it, or you will be directed to software to get that set up. I have a Windows machine. I have it attached to the USB port on COM3, and it talks to the layout and or it talks to my programming tab. And okay. So effectively what happens is that when you first get involved with Dakota Pro, you have a first time preference index, a preference setting that you have to do. This is where you're linking your computer to the hardware that's in the Digitrax setup. And I have to tell you, you need to do this. It's really specific to whose device you use. I'm a Digitrax kind of guy. There's a lot of Digitrax users down by me, and it's really easy to use. I've helped somebody who had NCE, and I set this Digitrax up on 4 other layouts and 4 other guys locally. So it's the toughest part is getting that done. And I want to show you what my setup is. All right, here is the setup. This is where I am right now. You can see I have a programming track, and there are 2 tracks there. One is HO, and the other track is ON3. I'm an ON3 modeler, but I also do a lot of HO work. You can see the Digitrax PR3. It's the white box that's just based below the 2 tracks. And then there's if you notice, there's a black box that wires are running into. And that black box has what they call a program booster for some of the sound decoders like the Tsunamis and the TCSs. They really program more easily if you get a little more voltage to the tracks. So I have put in a programming booster. That programming booster is in that black box. So it's nothing, so the circuit isn't exposed. I'll talk about that another time because I have some dial there that allows me to put different functions onto a track. I can actually make that track live with the layout, or I can disconnect the programming booster. The computer is sitting immediately in front of that. All right. And then you could see that that's how that thing works. When you first sign on and you have all of this working, when you sign on to Dakota Pro and you click on it, you will see that screen. Okay. And now at this point, I'm going to drop out of the PowerPoint and I'm going to go live. This is live, the live screen from Dakota Pro. I have a diesel on the track, all right, and that diesel it will actually function. So I'm going to, now what happens, if you notice, I have a roster here. This is a roster of all the trains that I have decoders in. You see this? Now, if my decoder loses any, if one of my decoders loses a function or has to be replaced, I have all the information about that particular decoder and that locomotive on that roster. Now, if I'm wanting to, if I'm wanting to work on the locomotive, all I have to do is, let me see, this is the Plymouth number 120. So I'm going to dial up this Plymouth 120 and it's going to sit there. Okay. And now it shows the screen of each of the different panels. The first panel is a roster entry. It's a Plymouth number 120. It's an old Pacific Coast Railway. Its road number is 51. It's a car. The manufacturer is CarWorks. I'm the owner. It has a Digitrax SDH166D S series decoder. That means that is one of the cheapest decoders you can buy. It's a sound decoder from Digitrax, and it kind of, you get it at bargain prices somewhere around the $42 range. So this is a roster entry, and I'm going to now go into the first of the screens. This is the first screen, is the basic screen, and that has the addresses. Now I'm going to sit here and I'm going to read this full screen, and what it's going to do, the system is actually going to physically read what's in on that diesel, and hopefully it's reading it. Come on. Oh, there it goes. I'm sorry, I don't have a picture on the screen of the diesel as it's going through its reading, but you can see that the screen is changing. Now, if I wanted to change that address back to 3, all I would have to do is put in a 3, just here, like so. And all I would do is say write changes. And okay, now that locomotive has an address of 3. Oh, I really don't want to do that. So I'm going to change the address back to 120. Now, this is a bad example. You know why this is a bad example? Because you see, it says short addresses, 120. You know, it says it's a short byte. Normally, a short address is 2 digits. However, because 1 byte can have up to a value of 128, even though a 120 is a 3-digit address, it's a valid short digit address. There's another diesel I have that has higher numbers, But that one, I don't want to confuse anybody by this, but I better write the changes here. Okay, so yeah, so that locomotive is now changed back to 120. Now, here's motor. Here's a motor panel. This motor panel is we set up an acceleration and deceleration rate. When we want, it has its own momentum built in. And so if I change the acceleration rate down to 0, it runs like as if you have a regular power pack. You just turn it up and it goes. With an acceleration rate of 10 and a deceleration rate of 10, when you turn the power on, it takes a couple of seconds for it to start going and accelerating. Then there's an option called kickstart. Because this is a rather big diesel compared to a little tiny HO diesel, I have the kickstart at 2, so the motor gets a little extra voltage to start. All right, but the rest of these we don't want to I don't know all what they are, and I don't fool with them. Now the next thing is that they have speed control. Now we can either do speed control where we have starting voltage, middle voltage here like this, or maximum voltage like this. And that's where as you accelerate or decelerate through your power, through your throttle, it follows that pattern in a very straight line. If you don't want to use that, they have what they call a speed table. And here is a speed table. Now, this is the standard speed table, but if I want it to be, I don't want to have a little switch diesel that has, that can go 100 miles an hour. So what I want to do is I want to have a speed table where the maximum speed is only half of what the full throttle is. Now I can change the aspect of that and make that curve look like that, or I can make the curve look like this. And that would be how this diesel accelerates and decelerates. There's another panel called functions. Now here's a function. Function 0 is normally if you put your headlight on. So, and that's the white wire of the decoder. So when you mark this off and you say, well, you want to use function 0, that means your function is going to put power to the white wire. When you want to do reverse means you're sending power to the yellow wire. So if your headlight would always be powered with the white wire, and the backup light would always be the yellow. Now, you have another wire for function 1. Function 1 is green, and that's the green wire coming out of the decoder. Now, function 1 on this decoder generally is the bell, but you could for the bell you could also have a flicker light, a dome light that flashes. The same thing you could have for every time you blow the horn, you could have ditch lights that get power. So then you would check those things off. So now if you look here, you go to the light screen. The light screen shows you what kind of light it is. Now, for me, I have LEDs in the lamp configuration. All right, so on a headlight, I have it as a normal headlight. For the reverse light, it's a normal normal headlight. But remember I said on function 1, you could have a dome light that flashes. Well, there you could have the option of putting in a flashing dome light, random flicker, Mars light, flashing light. You can do all sorts of little funky things with the lights. So those functions are really live functions. I don't fool with those right now. So we can move on to sound. Now, it says steam, but it isn't steam. There's another CV in there that allows you to say it's a steam engine. And the horn that I use is the horn from an RS1. Then you have the level of the sound. Here I have the master level all the way up. I don't have a great speaker in this one, so I have the master level pretty up. The volume when muted is that when you mute the volume, you don't want to hear it. So I have it down pretty low. The prime mover sound, the bell volume, I have the bells annoy me when I play, when I do switching in a yard. So I have the bell volume down to the mid level. The horn I like to have nice and loud. Here you have this whole panel that allows you to adjust the level of the sound. Now, this is an important one. Here are the actual CVs that you can work your way through. You can see all of the CVs that are on this particular decoder. And you can go and read them and change them. So that's that, but that I don't want to get too deeply involved into any of these other issues here, other than the things that I've touched, because basically, if you've ever watched the DCC guy, and he says, well, there's really only eight configuration variables you really want to fool with. Well, this allows you to get to those 8, but it allows you to do a lot of other things. Now, this was a very inexpensive standard Digitrax decoder. I am now going to put on, let me get out of this engine. Okay, good. Close. All right. Now I'm going to put another engine up. This engine has a Tsunami decoder in it. It is an Alco S1 switcher. And it belongs to the Lehigh, New England. Well, you know what? Let me do this first. If you have a new decoder that you've installed on a new engine, you could always hit this new locomotive button, and then you see all these decoders companies. These are all various decoder companies, right? And now I can read what kind of decoder is on here by saying, read the decoder pipe from the decoder. And so it's now going through the process of looking at that decoder, reading it, and determining what the address is and the other various and sundry pieces of information about that decoder. Remember, the Digitrax decoder had a certain set of panels. Now, this one is, you can see here, these lit up items. This is here we go, hold on. Tsunami. Look, there's a lot of tsunamis. I have to choose which one it is. Oh. 244. It happens to be an Alco 244. And it registered this locomotive. It registered as an Alco 244. So you can actually start a whole roster from here. So I'm going to go, let's go back to the other roster, and I'll bring up this diesel. So I can see all of the different functions that's there. Okay. It's a Lehigh, New England, 611. So if we go back to, they go down to basic, all right. So now it's a long address. It's 600, it's diesel 611. All right. And let's go see. Now, when we go to the next set of panels, things will start to look different. You notice there was no kickstart. Well, there's no kickstart on Tsunami decoders. Now take a look at speed control. Speed control looks a little different. So they had three different uh, settings for start, mid, and high voltage. Not so on a Tsunami. Okay. However, the speed table is still there. There's the speed table. I like this speed table. Now look at the function map. Look how different the function map is. The function map is totally different than the Digitrax. There's a little bit more. There are more functions that are available in that decoder. So they have function. They have FX5 and 6. They have all these different live functions, and how you attach these functions to the throttle functions, to the wires that run inside the decoder. So you can, so if you have your headlight on, you could also have your air horn on. If I would click this air horn like this, if I had my headlight on, that air horn would be blasting. Okay. So each decoder has its own set of rules. Now let's go to sound.
Hey, Charles, we have a question on YouTube.
Yes, sir.
Will the NCE USB interface to a Decoder Pro work if you only have the NCE power cab? No main system or booster?
Well, isn't the NCE power cab a main system?
I'm not too familiar with NCE, but I want to lean towards yes. But
yeah, I think it does. The NCE system that I have, the fella has a big NCE system, and he does use the NCE USB connection with the big main system.
Clark in the Zoom chat said yes as an NCE user.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good. I don't know if the NCE USB port connection will work on an Apple. Okay, I know my friend has my NCE friend has does just a regular Windows machine. Oh, anyhow, so getting to sounds. There's a whole different panel for sounds, and let's go to sound levels. For Tsunami, look again, a whole different set of sounds. Now, if I were to put a Tsunami 2 up here, you would see even many more of these configuration variables. So when you look at every one of these situations, okay, you know, what's interesting, I can't, this bar up on top is blocking, well, here, I can get out of this. Okay, we know that. Close. Now, if I look here, let's see, this decoder, you see this decoder here on Lehigh, New England 701. This is an ATL 100 LCT-KT. This is a previously old Soundtrax decoder. I mean, this decoder is about 25 years old, and it has all of the functions. Again, if you look at motor, his motor, that looks again like but here's the sound. Look at the sound. This sound is very simple. I mean, this is 25 years ago. Sound levels is easier to see. All right. And it's a Soundtrax decoder, much smaller, much simpler, much older. And it doesn't have anywhere near the functionality. Okay. Now let's go see if I can find a, oh, it's, yeah, notice there's a loc sound in here. I have a loc sound engine. Oh, here's a wow sound. No, I don't have the engine. Well, but I have the, we can look it up. Okay. Now, if you look here, here's a wow sound. Yeah, you can play with the wow sounds too. Again, now the wow sound has BEMF enabled, disabled, motor buttons, all sorts of functionality. The motor control, again, here it's like the Digitrax. The function, I bet you the functions are going to be all there. The functions look like this. The lights look like, look at the lights. Okay. So the sound, let's see the sound functions. Okay. Here, I mean, they have what they call these indexed CVs, which are very complex, but you can see where they are, how they're set. Look at all the options for whistles. Amazing! It's amazing, and you have chuff rates that you can decide. Look at the chuff rates. So what happens is that each one of these panels that were developed by JMRI is really based specifically on the different decoders that the different manufacturers make, and all the different panels to give you the full functionality of those decoders. So it's very easy, because I've been doing a bunch of decoder installs, and so if somebody gives me a 166 decoder, I know it's how to put it in, or a 123 decoder in, or a TCS. I use this all the time to program it. I don't have to look at the manuals, because it keeps everything in one place. Now, the good part about this is that once you've established each of your locomotives, now I have a bunch of Rio Grande C16s and C19s, and they're using TSU 1000s. All right. I actually have a bunch of Mikados. You see 473, 476, 478, 483, 486, 497. All of these they can be all programmed at once. And if I lose one of these decoders, I don't have to worry about how I set the brakes and how I did this and how I did this. I can always download what these decoder settings are in my roster. So that's where I am with this, and I hope I didn't make it too complicated. So that's the story. Any questions?
Charles, before somebody asks, let me make sure I understand, because if I know the decoder I've got, I can go to this Decoder Pro,
Right.
and all I need to do is go to the different tables, pick whatever sound I want, whatever I want, out of what's in that table, click on that, and I'm in business.
Yeah, it is, and you don't have to go. It's not even. You don't have to know which particular version of the decoder you have on. Is that you have to know your decoder is on, is properly installed. So then you can sit the model on the track, and then hit new loco button, and it'll read that decoder, and then it'll build the tables that decoder has.
And so then all I do is go to the tables that it produces,
Yes,
and click whatever I want.
that clicks whatever function you want.
Yeah.
Now, there's also another thing, and I will just bear with me for a moment, and I'll be right there. There's a device called an ESU decoder tester, and they're not the only ones who make it. It looks like this. Can you see it?
And a little higher. Little higher. There you go.
Okay, you see that?
Yeah.
And now this device, you take a decoder and you screw it into the particular terminals, or there's a plug-in right here. There's a plug-in. There is a plug-in here for a 21-pin plug-in, and
Yeah.
then or the wires are in here, and then you attach these two that say track. You see where it says track?
Yeah.
Okay, you attach those with clips
Yeah. Okay.
to your programming track. So now, before you even install your decoder, you can test it.
Ah, I got you. Okay.
And you put that in there, and then it has a motor. See, it has a motor.
Yeah.
Okay, and it has a speaker, so you can test the sound. You put a throttle to it, and you can do all of those things and read the decoder and write to the decoder. And I always do that because I always want to make sure that I'm working with a decoder that I haven't gone through the install yet, and I would like to make sure that it works and I didn't have any problems with it from the initial, unwrapping.
Yeah.
And this way you don't blow up the decoder, because if you put it into a train, you may cause a short. You may do something to it. You could blow up a decoder. With this, you're not blowing up a decoder. And this
Is that an expensive tool?
No, that's I think $35.
Oh, okay.
It's ESU makes it. It's not a big deal.
Okay.
It's a very absolutely useful tool.
Hey, Charles, Fran F. that asked over on YouTube that asked the last question says this is the clearest explanation of a decoder pro that they have ever seen. Thank you.
I really appreciated it. I did not want to do Decoder Pro through a PowerPoint presentation. I wanted to do it live, okay? Because it really helps to see it. The only thing that I didn't have a camera on the diesel, so you could see the diesels going and flipping back and forth.
Charles, what other parts of JMRI do you use?
Well, the only other thing I use the operations, which is what I did the last time.
Yeah. Okay.
Which is the switch lists and manifests. I really enjoy it. And
yeah.
I did try to use to build a CTC panel with the layout.
Yeah.
I got to that, but I'm so busy working on models and doing decoder installs for people, and right now it's I don't have the bandwidth to go through reading the JMRI manuals because I tried to do the layout of the track plan, and I actually got the switches in place, and I could actually drive my switches from the computer, so I could sit there and click, and the switches will work off the computer.
Yeah.
I got that to work fine. The problem I had was actually doing the layout of the computer screen to match the layout of and to put the position the switches and all of the tangents that brought the switches together to come in to do a good control panel. But that's something to do.
Charles, are you using this new stuff the NMRA is talking about, this LCC stuff?
No, I'm not using that stuff.
Okay.
No. What I have done Well, I know what LCC, what they're trying to do is that what happens is that there are so many stationary decoders that are out there. When I mean stationary decoders, I'm talking about people are putting lights in buildings, and they're powering their accessories, and they're
Right.
powering their accessories using um, addresses on those accessories. So that limits the amount of locomotives you can run.
Right.
And it kind of jams up. You get a traffic jam on the signals going out to the track. So
Right.
and the NMRA decided that for stationary stuff, we want you to pull out and separate the track voltage signals with the signals that are for stationary devices and accessories, and that's what they've done. But it's I've gone to a couple of clinics at the local MER of the regional clinics, and I saw it and I said, I'm not ready for that yet. I guess I'm too old.
Yeah, I got you.
So I didn't I really haven't embraced it. I have done my own homework on it, in that I've run what they call accessory buses on the layout,
Yeah.
where I have 16-volt AC, and because I'm using AC, all right, because the layout is 35 feet long, all right,
Right.
and I have a lot of buildings, and I have the turntables, I have switch machines, I've got all sorts of things running off of them. Okay, so I like to have running down uh, the accessory buses 16 volts AC, and so as I need to get and grab electricity for various and sundry things, I'll put in a bridge rectifier. I'll put in, if it's lit with LEDs, I'll throw a bunch of resistors in place, or I'll use one ballast light and then have a little circuit that says, just grab 1.5 volts or 3 volts for the LEDs. The same, and for the switch machines, rather than taking them from track power, my DS64s are powered through this layout, what I call the accessory bus, but it's 16 volts and they only like 12 volts. So I have a little bridge rectifier that comes in and then sends 12 volts into the accessory decoder. So
Right.
there's all sorts of stuff that you can do. And so that's my kind of a nod to LCC, but without all of the really fancy circuits that they have.
Well, Charles, I can't thank you enough for being here tonight and coming back. I so enjoyed your operation of your model railroad and seeing it and hearing you talk about the switch list and all. And this, I think I might even understand Decoder Pro, and that's a real accomplishment for anybody.
Yeah, well, do you have a DCC on your little layout?
I have a World War II rheostat in a little blue box I bought, and an off-on switch and a diode connected to it. So, and I use one in each hand to run 2 trolleys at a time with my overhead wire. If that answers your question about my sophistication.
Well, I have to tell you, just a little quick story. My next door neighbor wanted me to build a layout for his grandkids, and he came over, and he thought it was fascinating because he said, I had trains when I was a kid. He said, so let me get these so let me see if these trains will work. So he gives me a whole bunch of trains with the old Atlas power packs, and he had some decent diesels. He had a couple of Atlas and a couple Atherns. So so he started building the layout, and I helped him, and we put it up, and again, with the Atlas power packs and all that. But then he came over to run my trains, see, and he said, "Oh, you got whistles and bells, and you can run 2 trains at the same time." He said, "I'd like to get into this DCC," and yeah, he did. He did. We put a DCC system in, and we upgraded. He started out with what they called a little starter DCC system from Digitrax, and he now has one of the later, more powerful units.
Yeah.
So yes, it's a very interesting, and you shouldn't be afraid of it because it gives you. I converted over about, I guess, 8 to 10 years ago, and I don't know how I played with trains uh, before that.
We don't play with trains. We
Yes,
run
I
the
do.
we run the railroad.
Yeah, yes, we do. And I have my switch lists are right up there behind me, and I have yet the oil extra is about is halfway between two towns, and I got to finish the run, or otherwise we don't. The refinery has nothing to do.
Charles, you want to come back on my show anytime, just let me know, and you're welcome. I can't wait for you to come back again. Thank you so
Thanks a
very
lot, guys. Thanks a lot.
Hey, Charles, we
Yes,
have
sir.
one question from the Zoom chat. Will the Decoder Pro display on read if the locomotive has a dual decoder setup, one for high power and one for sound?
No, I don't know how they do that, because there was an article in Railroad Model Craftsman about 10 years ago where the guys were putting in two different kinds of decoders. And what you should be doing, all right, is you should be having, you should have a switch where the power doesn't go to one of the decoders so you can read it. Because, you know, if you put if you have a Digitrax motor decoder and a Soundtrax sound decoder, they're in conflict. They're in conflict with each other. So yes, that would be difficult to read. You know, I could test it because all I have to do is put an ON3 engine and an HO engine on top, you know, and I could read two engines at the same time, and it would tell me. But I think it would get very confused.
All right, thank you.
Thanks again, Charles.
You're welcome.
Well, listen, I've got a couple of things to say. I have posted on my Facebook page, Jim Kello, MMR. That's my Facebook page. I have posted on there a sample card model that Paul Ebert designed for me. There's two different versions, one in yellow and one in red. It's only one page for each one of the models, and you get everything on that one page you need to build it. I've also included on that post a conversion chart. The models that I posted that Paul designed are in HO scale, but I've included a conversion post so that you can convert that by multiplying the necessary percentage for your particular scale, for S scale, for N scale, O scale, whatever. The conversion chart is there, and all you have to do is across the top, go to the HO column, and then down the side, you pick your scale and match them, and wherever that percent is, that those lines intersect, that's what you need to increase or decrease the drawing by for your particular scale. So you might want to play with it a little bit. I'll be posting probably 3 weeks before July 17th the card design that Paul has done, that Dave Rarick is going to build on his build along starting July 17th. And that'll be both on my Facebook page as well as on our website. So with that said, some of you may have heard and laughed about it. They drew my name as winning the $100 grand prize at the PSC convention last week. So the $100 prize was given by a local train store, not a hobby shop. It's a train store called Central Coast Trains in California. Lady that owns it, she's the sole owner. Her husband recently died. Her name is Anita. I talked to her today. Couldn't have been nicer. It's all about trains with her. That is her love. That's what her story is all about. And talking to her brought back so many memories for me. when I used to just couldn't wait to go to the local hobby shop. And I used to stand around and just talk to the guys, whoever happened to be there. We'd buy some stuff and we'd chit chat. And it was just fantastic. And I used to enjoy that so much. And I miss that environment so much. So I hung up the phone and placed my order with her for what I wanted for the $100. And I've offered her the opportunity to come on our show and talk about her train store, why she opened, to show you what she covers, to show you her service, and to talk to you about it. I don't know whether she's going to do it or not, because in California, she's 3 hours behind us, but I've offered her, a late segment. So I'm hoping she's going to take me up on it. But when I was talking to her, I thought, I wonder about having maybe a regular kind of session where it would be about going to the hobby shop and maybe have her see if she would be interested in doing that regular session and talking about her hobby shop, her model train store in California. It's not the largest train store around, but she couldn't have been nicer to me. Couldn't have offered more service to me. Couldn't have offered to do the kind of ordering for me that I needed, because some of the stuff that I would like to have gotten, she doesn't normally carry. But would she get it? Absolutely. No questions asked, no questions asked. My kind of hobby store. And I don't know whether this would be interesting to you guys or not. So that's my question for you. You don't have to answer me right now, but I probably, once we stop recording the show, I'll probably ask you again, would you like that kind of a segment on the show? Not every time, but periodically. And would you like for me to follow up and tell her, yeah, there's real interest in being able to go to the train store, go to the hobby shop again? So that's what I'm thinking. Our next Zoom is Saturday, May the 1st. Our featured modeler is a great guy. You've met him many times on the show. Andy Kent is going to take us through his total railroad, his National Lines Railroad. And it ought to really be exciting. We also have Bob Farquhar and his build along of the Blair Line kit. Randy and Gaylord, they're build along with the Bar Mills 1 kit. We've got Dave Silvernail starting his scenery section on modeling rocks and weathering rocks. And that ought to really be fascinating, because you've seen the kind of detail that he has in his background, in his scenery. And I'm really interested to see what Dave shares with us. So he starts the 1st of May doing that series. Paul Thompson will be back for his quick tips. I hope you'll join us. I hope you enjoyed tonight. I hope you learned something that'll help you in your modeling.